Hello, I'm Ken Schulson, President of Subprime Analytics. Today I'd like to talk about how at Subprime Analytics we analyze automotive installment loan portfolios. Previously, I talked about how to use metrics to measure portfolio performance, where I explained loss to liquidation, static pool, and default rate metrics. That presentation is included elsewhere on this website. At Subprime Analytics, we've analyzed subprime auto portfolios aggregating more than $12 billion for capital providers and operators around the nation. We believe that there are three important ways to evaluate your portfolio. The first method is to use performance measurements to determine the status of your portfolio. First, we look at the percent your portfolio is liquidated. Then, we calculate net loss to liquidation and default and static pool loss rates. We develop loss curves to project your future losses. And finally, we calculate your return on investment versus your industry peers. Now, Subprime Analytics has recently integrated with a number of leading dealer management software providers like AutoMaster and Finance Express. If you're using either of these software packages, you'll already find graphs that show the percent your portfolio is liquidated, your net loss to liquidation rate, and your default rate. If you're not using one of these DMS providers, good news. The others have developed extracts which can be sent to us so that we can do the analysis of your portfolio efficiently and cost effectively. First, we look at the percent your portfolio is liquidated. This graph is important because you need to know whether you're replacing your contracts as fast as they liquidate and how far amortized into your portfolio you are. Then we calculate your net loss to liquidation rate. This determines the pace at which losses are occurring in your portfolio. You use this metric to predict future losses, cash flow, and profitability. And finally, we calculate your default rate. Default rate is a measure of the quality of your portfolio, and capital providers judge your portfolio performance heavily by the default rate calculation. Next, we look at your business model and compare it with your industry peers. Your business model can determine your success or failure. Do you know how you compare with your peers? Well, we calculate the average amount financed, your average cost and vehicle down payment, your cash and deal, the average term of your contracts, your average weekly payment, your average gross profit, and your average finance charge. In the first graph, we're looking at average vehicle cost down payment, which when we subtract those two, you arrive at cash and deal. Cash and deal is important because it determines the risk you're taking in your business. How do you compare with your industry peers? Is your model competitive? Are you earning enough profit? We also look at your average weekly payment versus the average of weekly payments in the industry. Are you getting large enough customer repayments? How do your repayments compare with your competition? Are you leaving money on the table? Your average finance charge is important because that determines in part the yield on your portfolio and how much profit you're making. Is your finance charge competitive? Is it above or below industry standards? Finally, we look at understanding your bad debt losses by analyzing them. Here, we look at your gross dollar charge-off, your net dollar charge-off, your average recovery dollars. We provide an anatomy of each repossession. We look at the highest frequency of default after origination, the worst periodic loss month after origination, and we look at the aggregate net dollar losses in both dollars and units for the period after origination. Remember, the longer that you collect money from the customers, the more money you make. So you want your defaults to occur later in the life of your portfolio rather than earlier. Why should you understand your bad debt losses? Simply so you don't repeat them. When we do an analysis and anatomy of your repos, you can see how much you're actually collecting and how much you're actually charging off. We look at your average net dollar loss rate versus your industry peers. Are you charging off more than your competition? Are you maximizing your recoveries? As I mentioned earlier, we look at the aggregate net dollar losses by period after origination, remembering that the longer in the life you go before a default occurs, the more money you've collected. And what we find in talking with customers, if they're not doing this type of analysis, they have 4 common excuses, and I'd like to discuss each with you. First, I'm not a CPA or analyst and I don't do numbers. We understand. That's why we've turned our analysis into a number of graphs which allow you to quickly compare your performance with those of your peers. I don't want to know how much I'm losing. Denial does not make you any better. It's analyzing and understanding your losses that allow you to make adjustments so you avoid those losses in the future. I'm too busy for all that. We understand, and that's why we've developed an electronic method of analyzing your portfolio, which does not require you or your personnel to have to make these calculations. I know what I'm doing. We understand that, but it's always good to validate what you're doing to make sure that it's working. If you'd like to get more information about Subprime Analytics, please take a look at other sections of this website or call us at 832-767-4759. Thank you.